Today I want to talk to you a little bit about keeping it fresh. One thing that you need to know about me is that I absolutely love takeout. I love it. And I love it when you have it the next day. I love pizza the next day for lunch. I love Chinese the next day for lunch. And sometimes it tastes even better than when it's fresh because you've been looking forward to it for so long. But it doesn't always work out that way. I don't know whether you've ever got takeout and maybe you've got chips with it. And the chips on the time that you had takeout tasted so good. But the next day, you see the chips on the side that aren't finished and you remember how good they tasted and you think, I'd love a chip. And you take one of those chips and eat it. And as soon as you put it in your mouth, you know that you've made a mistake. Because that chip has gone stale. It's dry and cold and horrible. It's nasty. And stale isn't good for anyone or anything. Stale is that piece of hard bread on the end of a loaf that you have to cut off. Stale is soggy crisps where the crisps have been left open overnight. Stale is of no use to anything. It's often when something's just been left, abandoned, not touched, and you don't realise how stale something's become until you try to experience that thing again. And you know, it's not just food that can go stale. Our relationship with Jesus can go stale as well. When we just leave it, we don't really bother with it. We don't really make any effort. And then all of a sudden we try to spend time with Jesus, hear his voice, maybe something difficult happens. And suddenly we realise things have gone dry and cold. And the experience isn't what we remember it was originally. It's gone stale. But there's a story in the Bible, in the book of John, which is one of the books, the Bible's made of lots and lots of books, and John is one of those books. And he talks about what it means for a relationship with him to not be stale. So I'm going to read this to you. This is from John 4, verses 1 to 19, and it says this. Jesus knew the Pharisees that had heard that he was baptizing and making more disciples than John. So he left Judah and he returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to drink water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." She was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, "If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you're speaking to, you would ask me and I will give you living water." "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, "and this well is very deep. Where would you even get this living water? And besides, do you think that you're greater than our ancestor Jacob who gave us this well? How could you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" Jesus replied, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." "Please, sir," the woman said, "give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water." "Go and get your husband," Jesus told her. "I don't have a husband," the woman replied. And Jesus said, "You're right. You don't have a husband. You've had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." "Sir," the woman said, "you must be a prophet." You see, Jesus talks to this lady about living water. He talks to her about what it means to have a fresh, active, vibrant relationship with him. And this woman would have had a really rough time of it up to this point. This woman would have been looked down on, firstly because she's a Samaritan. And Jews hated the Samaritans. They thought of them as sort of second-class people. And so she will have been looked down on because of that. She'll have also been looked down on because she's a woman. It's not God's view, but at that time women weren't thought of well in that society. And so it's another reason she would have been looked down on. But she'd have also been looked down on because of her relationship status. That she'd been rejected 5 times over by men. And so she will have been hurt and broken and tired. And her relationship with God will have felt stale. And so Jesus talks to her about a well of living water. Now, That sounds really weird, but I want to talk to you a little bit about what that means. You see, in those days, there were two kinds of wells you could have, and wells were really important because there wasn't a Mackey's to go and get a drink, there wasn't taps in people's houses, you couldn't just, I don't know, go to a pub or anything. You had to go to a well in order to get water. And so every community would have a well, and wells worked in two ways. Either you had the kind of well that we find in this story, where it's a really deep hole, and when it rains, that well fills up with water, but then when it's hot and when it's dry, that water will just either sit there and go stale and go stagnant and be full of all the bits that have fallen in the water, or it will dry up completely when it's really hot. And so that kind of well wasn't really that much use. But there was another kind of well, a well that they called at the time a living water well. And this is a well that was built over a river or over a stream where water continually flowed through. Regularly, water would come through this, moving and flowing and fresh, and there was always water there. And this was the kind of well you wanted. And this was what Jesus was talking to this lady about. She was saying to her, I want to have the kind of relationship with you that is a living, active relationship, where it's not that every so often you have this encounter with me that then dries up and goes stale and old, but I want a relationship with you that is a living, active relationship, constantly moving and changing and growing and vibrant. And I believe that that's what Jesus wants for us as well. I think we can live our lives where we have it like that deeper well, that every so often we'll think of getting topped up or filled up. Maybe we have an amazing experience with Jesus once a year, or we go to a festival, or Jesus did something for us ages ago and we're kind of living off of that, but we've not heard Jesus speak to us recently. And so our relationship goes stale because day in, day out, we don't talk to Jesus. We don't spend time with him. And so when it comes to really needing to hear God's voice, we don't hear it because that relationship has gone stale. But I believe that Jesus wants us to have a living and active relationship with him, checking in with him, not just once a day, but throughout the day continually. As we walk into our homes, as we walk into school, as we walk into different environments, listening to what God is saying in that environment, walking into a space and saying, Jesus, what do you have for me here? A living, active, vibrant relationship with Jesus. Not one that's stale, has been left to go on the side. But Jesus wants a different kind of relationship with you, one that's fresh and exciting. And today, he's just waiting for you to get in touch and speak to him again.